Hi, everybody. Dr. Kathy. Hi. Good to see you. My favorite topic, the orgasm. Hope you can see this. This is the original orgasm that they talked about, Masters and Johnson, where you have, hope you can see that. I know the light is affecting it a little bit. Where you have the male and female sexual arousal stages. And when you look at this for the female is in light teal blue, you'll see that we women have an initial excitement phase. All right. This excitement phase is usually brought about by, stimulation, physical stimulation, by thought, even by both thought and physical stimulation, right? All that happens in the excitement stage. Both can happen or they can happen individually. Also, that's been learned recently that you can actually have someone look at you and get excited. That's also thrown in there. All that is excitement phases. That's what's going on when your body is saying, hey, they love the stimulation. So you're seeing that you are getting excited, aroused. That's the same phase, okay? And when you do that during that time, your body is physiologically responding, according to, again, Masters and Johnson. You'll find that your nipples will get hard, right? Your lips, your vagina start to swell, your clitoris gets hard, and you get moist, you get wet, right? That's all happening during the excitement phase. Now, generally during that excitement phase, you're getting aroused. And then we're supposed to move into, they say for some women, a very short or some people long plateau phase. And then that plateau phase is supposed to be where you actually have a end of the excitement phase. And this is where the clitoris is completely engorged. And this is where you must have stimulation of your clitoris to go to, or some people don't need the clitoris, but most people need the clitoris to be stimulated to go into that orgasm. So the most important thing is you want to get into that orgasm by using that plateau phase to get into that orgasm. Okay. And then if you have the orgasm, that is where you're having that rhythmic contraction of the muscles, right? The pelvic floor muscles. And it can include your uterus. It can include your vagina. It can include your anal sphincter, right? But the pelvic floor muscles are generally involved. Now, some people say that sometimes they're not involved, that some people have a very brief orgasm and other people have very long orgasms. Some people say 3 to 15 orgasms, muscular contractions, and some people have more than 34. Studies have shown people to have even more than 34, depending on the individual. And they last about 0.8 seconds between each rhythmic contraction. So generally, again, that varies too. Generally, you're going to have that rhythmic contraction during that orgasm. And then after the orgasm, you go into that resolution, which is where you are going to have the end of the orgasm. You're going back into that restful, peaceful state that you were before, and you're going to feel sleepy, and you're going to have a sense of well-being. Remember that afterglow we talked about before? You're going to have that afterglow that people generally say, oh my gosh, I feel great, thank you, and then you generally go to sleep. Now, some people can have another orgasm if they're multi-orgasmic, right? And men generally don't, unless they're multi-orgasmic too, and they can be multi-orgasmic too, and you can actually train yourself to be like that. The enjoyment there, though, is that you can go to sleep, or if you're lucky, you can do it again, but generally men don't do it again that quick, and I'm sure most of you all know that. So that's the resolution phase. Now, that's Masters and Johnson. There is someone, Helen Singer Kaplan, that came out with a different sort of module where She didn't believe in the excitement and the plateau phase being separate. She made them one. So she had this um, one phase, which is the arousal phase, and then the orgasm, and didn't even have the resolution, which I'm not really sure why. But she generally had the plateau and the orgasm phases put together, and then the plateau and the excitement put together, then the orgasm by itself, and then, of course, the resolution. So she had her own module where she felt that we didn't have to go separate the two, that it all happened together. And it makes sense. Again, I think we have a variation of this, all of us, right? And this B here says if you don't have that orgasm, we're going to have the resolution without the orgasm, right? Again, some people go up with the orgasm being completed after the excitement and plateau phase are very brief or very quick, and other people go to that plateau phase. Okay, so that's Miss Kaplan's linear. So there are two linear cycles, or two linear ways of looking at the orgasm. I want to go into the circular module in a little bit more depth because the circular model is more new. We basically just knew about these two modules, right? The linear modules. So to learn about the circular module is very interesting. So I'm not going to talk about this one, the first one, which is by Rosemary Basson. I'm going to talk about the other smaller ones, and we'll focus on the Rosemary Basson's orgasm circular model stages, because basically they're all saying that they're circular, that they go in cycles, okay? Unlike the linear, you go up and you come down. So this is pretty cool. So the cognitive model by Whelan and Roth is where you actually get the brain stimulated. So something happens, your brain gets stimulated. So this is without going through the steps of excitement and arousal from the linear perspective. This is actually getting your brain stimulated from either, again, an external source, or you're on your own. You can just think of it on your own. When you get that cognitive, again, it's called cognitive model, your brain starts thinking and starts creating these circuits or these cycles or these chemical reactions that go down to your organs and start the nipples getting hard, the lips getting engorged, the vagina and the clitoris getting hard and swollen, and you're actually going to get moist, right? And all that happens. So when you're having that happen, the brain is actually aware of it, and it happens and it comes back and it says, okay, it's pleasurable. And the brain says, okay, let's do some more. And then it goes back again to the genitals, and it goes back and forth. That's their own circle of thinking cognitively, right? Your thoughts are actually creating, which is part of a way of creating your own orgasm, okay? So the cognitive way of creating your orgasm is by telling your body respond, and it responds, and that's positive feedback. So that's the cognitive cycle. Again, very simple, by Whelan and Roth, and you actually can reach your orgasm if you are able to complete that orgasm and then have that resolution. That orgasm has to come from your cognitive brain convincing yourself you're going to have that orgasm. All right. So that's another module I want you to know of having that orgasm. Number 3, we have here positive, negative feedback, which is based on how we have our arousal. So this particular person, Whipple and Brash and McGreer, believe that you have a seduction phase in arousal. So you're seduced, something happens, and you just feel sexy. You feel, I want to have something happen sexually to me. Then you go through that sensation. So sensation starts, being stimulated in terms of senses and touching and trying to get your body in the erogenous zones stimulated and actually very, very awakened, very happy to be awakened. Then you go into a surrender. The surrender is actually the orgasm itself. So after you've gone into that sensation, increasing the sensation, and again, everything's involved, you go into that surrender, you release, and then you have a reflection, which is actually the resolution. Okay, that's by Whipple, Brash, and McGreer. That's their own circular pattern of sexual stimulation that they believe happens for people, okay? So it's a positive and negative feedback, okay? So if it stops, it's not gonna go further. You're not gonna have that surrender. You're not gonna have that resolution. So that positive, negative feedback has to continue. Otherwise, if the negative feedback, it's gonna stop. The fourth one is the brain orgasm. I love brain orgasms. There's an incentive-based stimulation. And again, I put sapiosexuals there, people that are just turned on by people that are very smart. They have a way of just having it as a plus. It's like, oh my gosh, I am so excited that this is happening. And it motivates them to turn on not only their brain, but the hormones are also associated with this. And it becomes a motivation for the whole body to start the whole chemical reaction, the whole physiological reaction. And the body starts having behaviors that stimulate the autonomic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. So both are stimulated. And when they're stimulated, you're going to get more likely that response of having that orgasm. But when they're not stimulated, if something happens again, like in all of the cycles, something can back up and stop it and interfere and then stop the orgasm. But with this, we're actually using the brain as, again, the starting part. We did have that in the cognitive, but that was more thinking. With the brain, it's more of an incentive. So there's that slight difference there. But my understanding is that any of these can happen, and they can happen sometimes on one occasion, on another occasion, and sometimes not happen at all, right? So it all depends on you. Some people have created that path and have certain ways that they already use, that they already know, while others don't use any of them and have that problem. So we've got to create that orgasm for those that are having that problem, right? But again, linear versus circular. Some studies have said that people say that there's a combination of Masters and Johnson with Helen Kaplan, but they say that Masters and Johnson beats them all a little bit more than these circular ones. But I need to emphasize that none of them are right. It's just what works for you and what actually your body prefers, and you've got to find that out, right? And how you find out? By trying, okay? Now, I left Rosemary Baslin's circular model for last because I think this is the most comprehensive of all the circular models. And I really do think that we should pay attention to this one because this one's the most interesting one because she has the same sort of ideas, but in her own way, it's a little bit more independent, again, of the physiological. It's more, again, thinking of the spontaneous sexual drive. So she thinks that you on your own will spontaneously, and I believe this, again, I think we're all capable of doing this, having that increase in sexual desire. And there's a hunger. I say here, you're in heat, right? The thoughts, the feelings, the fantasies are here. So you could be having some feelings that suddenly come upon you. You could be thinking about something and suddenly it comes upon you. Fantasies, if you have a fantasy that's waking you up in the middle of the night or bothering you, that can be the start of the whole cycle. So we have a spontaneous out of the blue. But we also have people that want to please their partner in that circle also. So some people say, oh my gosh, it's time, that time of the week or month for my partner to be satisfied. Let me get him aroused. And if they start getting themselves aroused by thinking about it and wanting to please their partner. Now, all that is, again, yes, in the brain, but it is all something that could be affected by external sources, right? So if something happens and it interrupts this, it's going to be interrupted. It's not going to go further. But the most likely chance, if you're not interrupted, is that you're going to go from this phase into looking for or seeking stimulation, which is what I have on what she has here on her diagram. It goes from spontaneous sexual drive to motivation to seek or to be responsive to. So you're going to be looking for it and you're going to open up your responsiveness. You're going to be saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to be more sensitive. Again, unconsciously, but you're going to be getting that feeling that you're going to feel, oh, you're getting aroused, right? But when you do get that, you're going to look for stimulation. And it could be, again, stimulation that you're doing through your thoughts, through physical stimulation. We all know masturbation, or you can just do it on your own. Again, I do know patients that have done it on their own. I've read about that too. It can be a combination of both thoughts and physical, and then knowing you're being looked at. I think that's so cool. Just knowing they're looking at your body, I think is so cool for women, meaning that the person admires and loves your body, and that can get you going, can get you very much aroused. And then you move into the sexual desire. which again is that excitement phase where everything starts getting warmed up. Again, the breasts, the vagina, the moisture all starts getting increased. And then you get into that arousal phase. But when you get into the arousal phase, there are certain things being added. Psychological factors are being added, right? Psychologically, you're getting into the mood. You're feeling more aroused and more desire for that person. Biological factors are coming into, so those hormones are coming in, and your sensations, all that physical stuff going on is increased. Then you get into that sexual arousal. Now, that sexual arousal, I have a little note here that says we have different levels of sexual arousal, right? Just a note, just in case you're wondering. You're not always going to have this great arousal that some people get when they're stimulated, but some people are lucky and do get these great arousals. Based on this, but they have low arousals, middle steady arousals, high fluctuation arousals, low fluctuation arousals, upper steady arousals, and high arousals. So they have 6 levels of arousals. Can they all take you forward to the next stage, which is the emotional and physical satisfaction? The answer is yes. You can still get aroused, sometimes not as intensely. Again, we do not really have a great way of measuring how intense orgasms are, but we're working on it. I'm sure they're working on it. But you can move into the emotional and physical satisfaction, which means you don't necessarily have to have an orgasm, but you get immensely pleased when you are going through that arousal phase. So this is really where you are going to end up. If you're lucky and you have an immense emotional and physical satisfaction, you'll have a bigger and better orgasm. The emotional intimacy is probably towards the same end. It's all happening, again, in her diagram. It's all happening in a cycle, going in a circular model, going around. And these things can be interrupted, which is what we don't want to happen, because that's where the orgasm will be slowed down or not happen. We want it to continue going from that sexual stimulation to the desire and the arousal, to the emotional and physical satisfaction, and to the emotional intimacy. To me, that is where you can get the best orgasm, when you are emotionally intimate with your partner. And it goes back to communication, but there's more than just communication. We all know that, but communication has a big influence and an impact on that orgasm. So again, having that emotional intimacy from the get-go, from the beginning, from before this, is really going to be a secret sauce there. I talked about a few days ago, yesterday. And then you continue and put this all together to hopefully reach that orgasm that Dr. Kathy is determined to make sure you have. I hoped I helped. If you have some questions, let me know. This article was based on Donald Lambert. He had a nice article that if you want to get access to it, let me know, I'll send it to you. But in the meantime, focus on the different ways that you can have your orgasm. I really need you to focus on that, because that's how we're going to get you to create that orgasm. The linear old school way is still applicable, okay? It is still working for women and men, but then we need to know whether this is something else that we are going to have to look at if we're having problems having an orgasm. And I didn't talk about men today. Men have a completely easier route to their orgasm, right? They have the desire, the arousal, the orgasm, and the resolution. They have different issues. There's just more erectile dysfunction, having issues physically. But again, if they have anxiety, if they have some psychological factors that can impact them. So I know that men, you guys need to have your own talk. But because women are so complicated, I really wanted to focus on this. And I might come back and do this again, focus on just this. If you want me to, let me know. But for you, I want you to focus on creating that orgasm if you're not able to, or if you're having problems, and magnifying that result so that you can enjoy yourself in the bedroom even more. Okay? All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night. Take care. Bye.